everyone. How are we doing today? We're good. I am so excited to be here with you guys, and it's like my journey. I'm so excited because there's so many beautiful faces, so many strong, independent women. I'm just very excited to go on and get started. I firstly want to thank you, Vicki, Alec, that sadly can't be here, and Jamie. This is just a wonderful opportunity that I've been blessed to be here. So yeah, I'm very excited. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Rachel Fry. Yep, on the women's soccer team. I'm a captain. I've been a captain since junior year. Yeah, I'm from Greensboro. If you guys have been there, if anyone knows where Brown Summit is, that's exactly where I'm from, North Carolina. My major is tourism, recreation, and sport with a concentration of hospitality, and I'll explain a little bit later in my slides. I actually changed that up from sophomore year. And so my history with UNCW, I was recruited and committed my junior year in high school, which is a pretty young age to commit your life somewhere. You know, I was deciding between two places, NC State and UNCW, and I go, well, how am I supposed to make that decision at 18, you know? But here we are, and I'm very grateful because I definitely made the right decision. I fell in love my first orientation. Me and my mom looked at each other and we said, this is going to be awesome. And so we just went forward. I found my people here. So yeah, starting with leading with authenticity. Authenticity to me is basically being yourself, using the gifts that you have been gifted, and just knowing the strengths that you hold. They don't have to be like anyone else's. And that's my biggest thing is be yourself. You know, what's your woo? And I'll explain woo in a second. Raise your hand if you know what woo means. Oh my gosh, okay, woos. So yeah, I took the Clifton Strengths Assessment and I was like, okay, what are my top 5 strengths right now? And I actually did this before I went on my trip with the Seahawk Leadership Academy, and I was like, what are my top 5 strengths? So woo was my number 1. And I go, well, what does woo mean? And everyone's like, that means you can walk into a room, make friends with anyone, talk to strangers, make people feel special, and that's just your gift. And I said, well, that's a wonderful gift. Everyone in here has a wonderful gift, whether it's woo, you're an includer, you're a learner, whatever it is, it's your own power, your superpower. And so, yeah, I just like to lead with my woo. So what's your woo? You know, kind of going back and thinking, what is something that's very unique to me? It doesn't have to be like anyone else. How can I go into a room, be a loud leader, a quiet leader, and do everything you need to do to just be yourself and lead that way? But yeah, being on the team at UNCW has been such a wonderful opportunity because I've been on a team since I was 4 years old. I've been playing soccer since I was 4. So it was a really wonderful thing. You know, my mom always wanted to get me into sports at a young age because she knew that that collaboration is going to do well for you later on. Well, I didn't expect to meet my lifelong best friends, have the communication skills I have to go into workforces and just collaborating with the rest of my team. It's been wonderful because there's not only captains that are leaders, but there's younger girls that are coming in and they follow you. You know, they like to watch the people lead by example, and everyone kind of follows with influence. So it is quite wonderful to see everybody, you know, having a large variety on your team of, okay, there's a different perspective. There's different leadership types that I can learn from. Because I've always been a pretty loud, direct leader. But it's nice because on this team, I realized it doesn't only take a loud leader, but it takes time to listen too. You know, I've actually, you know, being a loud leader, I've realized, what's a weakness of mine? I'm like, do I talk too much? I'm like, do I need to listen more? So I've worked on my active listening and listening from our younger players and our other captains and even our coaches. And it's really just been a wonderful thing for me to just learn about myself. So I've authentically picked up on what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, and I've continued to grow. So yeah, just using your gifts. And so a huge thing for me is my support group. you guys are a whole support group. You guys support each other. And so just knowing that my first point here is kind of, I always say this, quality over quantity, but I really mean it like, you know, you're with your crew and you've got your circle, right? You don't need to have 100 people. If you have 5 people leading you and being with you and telling you, you know, reassuring you, that's a really wonderful thing because, you know, you want to go back to, okay, what kind of qualities are they going to be giving me that I can reciprocate back out to them? And so some of the qualities I look for in my support group are, you know, loyalty, transparency. You know, I want someone who's going to, again, be strong at something else that I'm probably not so good at. And I don't exactly want someone to tell me everything I want to hear. You know, I think that's very important. You know, I talk to my mom a lot, and, you know, she's pretty biased because she loves me a lot. I love her. But I'm like, you know, you have to talk to some people who are going to give you a different perspective, especially on your opinions and your journey. It's nice to have different environments and background cultures that you can just listen to and take information from. So yeah. And yes, so how can I be a good leader in a big group, right? In a big team? Well, you don't have to look at other people and do exactly what everyone else is doing. I think just showing up for others. If it's a fitness test, we just did our Spark test, which is, you know, you have to hit 32, and it's a lot of running. But when you show up for those that either don't make it or you're done with the test and the second group is running, and, you know, you get on the line with them, and you say, let's do this together. I think that takes a quiet moment of, okay, I'm here for you, and we're going to do this together. So going on to growing into mindset. This is kind of what I was tapping into earlier. My sophomore year, I had 2 years at UNCW that I said, I want to be a PT. I want to be an OT, an occupational therapist. I'm going to be in exercise science. And I was really excited about it, but I just knew every time, I was like, I feel super robotic about this. When someone would ask me, what are you majoring in? What do you want to do? I said, I really want to be, you know, a PT. But then I pictured myself sitting in a room and I was like, you know, maybe this isn't my jam. So I kind of pivoted and I was like, okay, what are the basics that I know that, you know, not what other people tell me about myself, but what do I love? What do I know about myself that makes me a strong person, that makes me a good leader? And I knew I loved people. I knew I loved interpersonal connections. I knew I wanted to move forward and help other people and make them feel special. That's, you know, the woo. And so, yeah, I then pivoted my sophomore year, going into junior year. I said, I want to do tourism, recreation, and sport with a concentration in hospitality. Because I was told, I said, you should go into hospitality. I said, okay, maybe I could be a Disney princess. Maybe I could go be on the cruise lines, because I've been to a lot of Disney cruises. I'm a Disney adult, so we can talk about that later. But yes, so I knew I wanted to grow my connection with interpersonal relationships, and that has taught me so much about myself of, okay, I listened to myself. I listened to where my brain took me. I said, I know I don't feel amazing in this one aspect. I want to open up and I want to go somewhere else. And so that's what I did, and it's kind of stepping your foot out of the boat, whether you're scared, whether you're not so sure of what's going to come out of it, but you know within yourself, you're like, you know what, I'm going to step out of the boat and I'm going to take that jump. So that's really important to me, because also having a support group that's there for you saying, listen, if that's what's going to make you happy, you should go do that. Being reassured, honesty, and with that transparency of, are you sure you want to do that? And you say yes, you know? So yeah, that's the support group. And Costa Rica. So you guys, this is going to sound like, you know, I was just a student athlete and I was lucky to go on this trip, but this was truly a blessing. I had the opportunity in December. It was actually the last day of the application. Me and my roommate were sitting on the couch, and our academic advisor said, you need to go look in your email again. There's something that you guys are missing, because they put the Costa Rica in the small text, and I was like, what are you talking about? And so I go back on email, I said, Kitty, we have to do this. And so it's basically an opportunity for 11 student athletes to go to Costa Rica and have a global experience of an 8-day trip. And we basically went to San Jose, La Cerva, La Fortuna, and back to San Jose when we left. But we had, quite similar to the leadership, the WILMA Leadership Institute meetings, we had 6 months prep of meetings that we would all come in and we'd sit, and it would usually be after a long day. Every Monday, you know, we'd have our practice, we'd have lifts, and then homework. So we were kind of juggling, no pun intended, but we were kind of juggling everything up, and we were like, you know, we have so much to do, but this is very important to us. So we would go, and there was only 2 boys in the program, which was kind of nice, but it was me. So it was 3 women's soccer players. We had women's track, we had women's softball, and it was awesome. We had women's basketball. We basically just had the best time. And men's swim and dive. But we had the best time talking about, what does it look like to be a good leader? What are your top strengths? What are your weaknesses that you can also turn into your strengths? You know, I remember talking about my weaknesses, and I said, maybe I can turn this into a strength. Being a perfectionist? Okay, maybe that can be a strength. You know, kind of, I catch myself a lot with one of my weaknesses, with kind of overwhelming myself with a schedule. You know, I overbook. Does anyone else overbook in here? It's easy to, because you want to do everything. I'm very much a go-getter. But knowing how to rest and treat your body and treat your mental is just as important as going and getting it. So, yeah. So when we were in San Jose, it was immediately just so wonderful. I had people ask me, you know, what did you see? And the environment was just so wonderful. There was graffiti everywhere. There's trees. There were monkeys. They call them monos. If you guys haven't tried their biscuits, you really must. Has anyone been to Costa Rica? Yeah? It was my first time out of the country, so it was really awesome. It was a really good experience. So we had went to a local elementary school our second day, and that has changed my life forever. You know, you show up, and the kids are just so excited to see you. It's like they've never had a substitute teacher. You know, they've never had new people come, and it was truly wonderful. You know, you get up there and you say your name in Espanol. You say, I'm play soccer in Espanol, and it's really awesome. But there was a language barrier. You know, Duolingo can only do so much in 2 months. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try. But, you know, we sit there, and everyone kind of went off on their own and went in their little circles. And we all got to learn their games. I learned a marble game. And this little girl, her name's Maria, she drew a little circle with chalk. And she taught me how to play her game in Espanol. And I was just picking up what I could. But it was just solely the fact that we were together. And, you know, a little girl who was, 6 years old was teaching me a game. And she was still trying to speak English. But just the sole purpose of, we're collaborating through communication of sport and leisure, and how important that is. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's quite wonderful that you can make that connection without even having to speak the same language. So if you're having, you know, that was me stepping out of the boat. I said, well, I'm going to have to learn, and I'm going to have to understand a different language. But yeah, just connecting through sport and community was a really good time. And then we found ourselves in a high school. And so one of the ladies, there was a study abroad program there, and then we all kind of snuck in the back. And she was talking about how Costa Rica has Saturdays that are for solely well-being. And I said, well, that is the most important thing. You know, we get our cars checked for their oil. We get our nails done if we want, that's a little chic. We get all the things done, we get our roof reinstalled, but are we really checking on our well-being the most? I think that's very important. So just being able to go in there and hear their message. From the high school, she was talking, they take well-being very serious. There's a whole day off for them. And everyone goes to the farmer's market, and you guys are going to be able to experience it, and you guys are going to be able to go and shop, but also communicate with all the people there. So I said, okay, let's do this. So we go, and the three of my teammates, we actually ended up playing with the locals there. We played soccer with them. It was a wonderful experience. Everyone was competitive, but again, connecting through sport and just confidence that you can go up to a stranger and make a friend. You can go up to strangers and connect with them any way you want, just coming off and making sure you're treating others with kindness too, because that is one of the things that I think holds the most impact is how you treat others. That's how people are going to remember you, is, well, was she kind? Was she really listening to me? Did she really care what I was saying? And if the answer is yes, then you're already that step there where that's awesome. And so lastly, we went to the local volleyball camps. This is my favorite story. So I'm Rachel, and I had a friend. We went into the local volleyball camp, and all the girls are warming up. They speak very good English. But I walk up, and I meet a girl named Raquel, and I said, we're partners, Rachel squared, hey girl. And so it was awesome because she basically took me under her belt, although I was a stranger to her. And her coach was speaking in Espanol, of course. And I was like, what is he saying? And he had just said líneas, and that means lines. That means you're sprinting. And I said, what? And so then we started doing sprints, but she was walking me the whole way. But it was a really awesome experience because she just taught me, I was in her area. I was in her space. And it was really cool to see all of the girls with all our different players who, we have track players, soccer. I'm not too great with my hands, but she was teaching me all her tips and tricks, so it was really awesome. So pura vida. And just to wrap it up, one of my biggest points, seriously, lead with your own gifts. Lead with your authenticity, using your individual strengths. If you're thinking of something right now that you love to do and you're good at, and you haven't tried it yet, or you haven't stepped out the boat, you must step out the boat. Have that courage. Let that courage be right now. Let this be your sign. And finding your support group. This is a huge support group. This is a wonderful group. I can't wait to talk to some of y'all afterwards. I hope y'all come to some of the games. But surrounding yourself with the right people, making sure that you're reciprocating that same energy. You want to treat others the way you want to be treated, just with kindness and, with genuineness. And so lastly, growing your leadership throughout the world. Challenging yourself to do new things. This is a challenge for me. I'm very outgoing. I can have a one-on-one conversation very well, but talking in front of a big group, I said, this might be hard. But actually, I'm like, having kind of fun up here. But just challenging yourself to step out that boat, because that's one of the most important things. And so that's how you truly, truly grow, is just stepping out of that boat, getting uncomfortable. I've learned a lot about myself through, my ups and definitely my downs. So, here's our schedule if you guys want to take a picture. But thank you guys.